In 1989, Tokyo's Imperial Palace was worth more than all the land in California. Yes, one piece of Japan was priced higher than an entire American state. The Nikkei stock index was racing towards 40,000. Japan had become the second largest economy on earth. Its companies were buying Rockefeller Center, Hollywood studios, golf courses in Hawaii. And the world asked one question: is Japan going to rule the 21st century? Then the music stopped. Within a single year, the stock market lost more than 50% of its value. Real estate collapsed, banks were left holding mountains of bad loans, and an economy that once grew at 7% per year between 1957 and 1990 suddenly slowed to almost nothing. This is the story of how the greatest economic miracle in modern history became the longest stagnation ever recorded in the developed world. This is the story of why Japan stopped growing. To understand the fall, you must understand the excess. During the late 1980s, banks handed out easy credit. Land prices skyrocketed. Stocks became a national obsession. Money was no longer chasing productivity, it was chasing speculation. When the Bank of Japan raised interest rates to cool the bubble, everything crashed. By 1990, the Nikkei collapsed. By 1992, asset prices had imploded, and Japan entered what would later be called the lost decades. From 1991 to 2003, Japan's GDP grew just 1.14% per year, a fraction of its previous pace. But this was not just a crash, it was a slow freeze. Between 1995 and 2025, Japan's nominal GDP fell from $5.55 trillion to $4.27 trillion. Its share of the global economy collapsed from 17.8% to 3.6%. Real wages dropped around 11%. No other G7 country experienced this. Let that sink in. Japan didn't just grow slowly. In dollar terms, it became smaller. Meanwhile, the US boomed, China exploded, India surged. Japan? Well, Japan stood still. Most economies fear inflation. Japan feared the opposite. For years, prices didn't rise, they fell. And that sounds good until you see what it does. If prices are cheaper tomorrow, you don't spend today. Companies stopped investing, wages stopped rising, cash became more valuable than risk. Even 0% interest rates failed. Because in a deflationary world, zero is effectively positive. The economy entered a psychological freeze. To fight the slowdown, the government spent and spent and spent. Today, Japan's public debt is 260% of GDP, the highest in the developed world. Yet, there was no collapse. Why? Because most of that debt is owned by Japan itself, which created a strange situation. Japan became the most indebted yet most stable major economy. But the stimulus did not restore high growth. It only prevented total collapse. Now let's talk about the real villain. Not banks, not interest rates, not the government policy. The people. Japan's population peaked in 2010 at 128.5 million. By 2024, it fell to 122.6 million. And it is still shrinking. By 2070, it's projected to be 87 million. The working age population falling even faster. Today, it is just 59.6% of the population, the lowest in the OECD. Fewer workers means less production, less consumption, less tax revenue, and more pension cost. Almost 30% of Japan is already over 65. This is not a slowdown. This is a demographic reversal. We all know Japan is famous for bullet trains, robotics, precision manufacturing. So why is growth weak? Because productivity, the true engine of wealth, stalled. Japan's labor productivity is about 2/3 of the United States, the lowest in the G7. And in 2022, it ranked 31st globally. That means Workers are busy, but they are not creating enough value per hour. Japan built its success on lifetime employment, seniority wages, consensus decision making. These created stability, but in a fast changing digital world, they slowed innovation. The startups struggled, risk taking declined, and old companies survived, even when inefficient. The system optimized for no failure, but without failure, there is no rapid growth. Japan saves too much. Yes, too much. For decades, households and companies held enormous cash reserves. Why? An aging population saving for retirement. That created chronic weak demand because money was not being spent or invested. The result? A rich country behaving like it was preparing for a permanent winter. They tried everything first: zero interest rates, quantitative easing, negative interest rates. The Bank of Japan became the largest buyer of the government bonds. It even bought stocks. Policies the West later copied. Japan had already tested for decades, and still, growth stayed low. In 2010, China passed Japan. In 2023, Germany went ahead of Japan. Japan became the fourth largest economy at $4.2 trillion. India is expected to pass next, not because Japan collapsed, but because others grew faster. Here is the twist: Japan did not become poor. Living standards remain among the highest in the world. Unemployment stayed low, crime stayed low, infrastructure stayed world class, and GDP per person has continued to rise in recent years. Japan didn't fail. It did not fall. It aged. Japan's long-term growth is projected to stay below 1% per year, unless it increases immigration, boosts productivity, gets more women and elderly into full-time work, or drives innovation. Because in the end, economic growth is simple: more workers or more output per worker. Japan has neither. Well, at least not at scale. Japan is not just a country, it is a preview, because the same forces are now hitting Europe, China, and South Korea. Aging populations, low birth rates, high debt, slow productivity. Japan isn't the exception, it's the future. And the real question is not why Japan stopped growing. The real question is, who is next? Japan didn't collapse. It entered a different kind of economy, one where growth is no longer guaranteed. And in a world addicted to expansion, that might be the most shocking story of all. If you liked the video, do not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.